All right, this is the September 11th meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting is hereby called to order under the authority of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice is given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Arthur Page.
Yep.
Kurt Turner, absent. Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys, absent. Dan Shinnick.
Here.
Sam Strife, absent also. Howard Vogel, absent. We do not have a quorum present yet, Mr. Chair, but we have
Let us try to work
two
through the
members who
administrator.
indicated
Yes.
they were coming.
That would bring us to our first item, which would be payroll and/or vendor bills.
Yes. May I ask for approval of payroll?
Judy, I think Sam just
Something for you to sign.
Mm-hmm.
Something for you to sign.
No, not wasted any time, are we?
the clock is ticking.
And Mr. Chairman, approval of our hours worked for the staff. And request for approval of reimbursement of the cell phone allowance.
Yes.
And also purchase of some Post-it notes.
Changing the weather.
And these are the two backup copies of invoices for those purchases. Thank you.
Just see if the issues
For folks that have just come in, could you please possibly sign the butter attendance sheet, or just, should be just an attendance sheet? You don't have to be in the butter to sign
Mr. President. That concludes the bills.
it. That concludes.
So we have the minutes, 3 minutes, for past meetings,
Yes.
which is the August 21st, 2018, and July 10th, 2012, July 31st, 2012. We'll do them one at a time. So the first one, did everybody have a chance to peruse the electronic version of the minutes for August 21st?
Yes.
Any questions, alterations? And Kurt had already called in, so
Yeah, it has Kurt Turner's seal of approval.
if that's fine with me.
And I feel better about it already.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve? Presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Okay, unanimous, approved, thank you very much.
Now, one of them, Kurt did have a question on. Was that the July 10th or, okay.
No, I don't believe so.
No.
I just got one email that said the
Okay,
minutes were all okay.
Okay,
So I
all right.
assumed it was inclusive of all
Yeah.
three.
And did everybody have a chance to review the July 10th, 2012?
Yes.
Any questions, additions, errors, omissions? Do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, approved, unanimous.
And that brings us to the last one for the night, which would be the July 31st, 2012. Everybody got to see it? Is there any questions, alterations?
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to accept those as presented? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, approved. Thank you very much.
Now, did Kurt have a chance, because he enjoys that, did he have a chance on this, the next one, the Dodge Reservation?
No. Really, just the memo is just to let you know what the review with Judy Pickett, Town Council, and
Right.
myself,
Right.
what were raised in concerns, and that was sent to Vanessa Johnson
Yeah.
at Greenbelt. It was also sent to the facilities director and two of the gentlemen that I interact with the YMCA camp, since town council wanted them to direct it to their council. She wanted to make sure that they reviewed it and had an opportunity for any comments. I expect to get a revised copy back probably within, I'm going to guess and say 4 working days from Vanessa at Greenbelt, at which time I will send that again to the YMCA folks. They got both.
Was there any questions, problems?
No, but we just in terms of sort of the full disclosure type thing,
Right.
since that governs some of the activities with the camp buildings and
Yeah.
stuff, we just want them to be aware of it, and if something strikes them that they want to comment on, we want to be inclusive and have them be able to comment, because in a sense they're partners, since they have to maintain the buildings out there and operate the facility.
And there was questions coming up on an additional room or whatever.
Well, in my interacting with them, we actually incorporated the ability for small accessory buildings such as sheds or storage buildings.
Necessary changes.
Yeah, as well as then town council's comment on the latest version. She noticed that there was language that talked about the water lines and the pit toilets being, or septic fields being replaced in the same location. And he said, well, and she raised the point that, sometimes that's not, you're not capable of doing that. Sometimes with septic systems, you need to do the replacement off to the side or whatever to get native soils and not interact with where the field's previously been. So anyway, so there was, so town council did raise a question about having a little bit more flexibility in, because you got to look in the crystal ball and you got to imagine what you can't necessarily think about now might happen in the future. How do we deal with it? So we're trying to get the language so there's reasonable flexibility, but also so it doesn't become so expansive and then you've got development occurring that you don't want to occur.
All right, so what do they want us to actually do? Just wait until they, yes.
Well, this is just to inform you, because I think I may have shared with you that town council had not only health issues, but major damage to her house in one of the storms.
Yes.
There are large trees, and so she constantly has to deal, she had a concussion, she constantly has to deal with now they're trying to get the other trees down around her house. She was talking to me today, and I hear this big whoops, and she goes, oh, I was just about to go out there and ask them what they were going to do about that large tree, but the branch just fell just outside the door and hit the ground and startled me, so I don't have to ask them that question anymore right now. So
We'll
so
just...
that's kind of a hard working environment for you to concentrate and get stuff done in a real quick manner. But we're slugging away at it. We're making progress, and I just wanted to show you the types of things that came up in that memo. And obviously, when I get the revised
final one that we
document,
will sign, that would be...
well, we're working in that direction. So we're working in that direction. There will be a revised version, like I said, possibly within a week to distribute to yourselves and the YMCA folks, so that again, we're moving along and trying to address the things that we identified through discussions.
Now, Mr. John Sullivan.
Now, Mr. Sullivan, we've made some substantive process there. There are two things that I need to check in with them on. They recently, just within the past week and a half, were working with town council on the access easement that would allow the public to cross from Newberry Road and get to the start of the open space parcel where the trail begins, because that's
It's a
private
different spot.
property and it's going to be private road. No, we're talking about 42 Newberry Road. It's 50 that changed the parking area.
But he did, I thought he did originally, I don't mean to drag this out, but I thought he had, or at least we talked about it last year, about having the access written in somewhere.
Right, but you have to actually proscribe a legal easement
Oh,
that lets the town and the public go across their roadway, which is going to be a private roadway, just servicing those condos that they're building. So there has to be a legally prescribed easement that lets us get to the open space.
so the same thing with that, that's in the process.
Yes, yeah.
Weren't there a couple of parking spaces on its lot?
Yes, yeah.
And that's
So those
the
have to be
easement is
covered by an
required by-
easement too,
yeah,
and,
okay.
and where the trail starts that goes into
I
the
know
open
where-
space.
Yeah.
That, for a portion, the trail's going across private property also, so there.
So we'll be seeing that again.
Yes, but there is substantive process, progress has been made on that. And it's entirely possible the CR document will be before you for possible
Next meeting.
consideration of signing, yes, because we got it returned back from EDA, and they didn't come up with any substantive things either.
Frank, so can I ask, to whom does the responsibility fall to maintain the trail that's on that conservation restriction?
By trail, you're talking the trail from where you park to.
In terms of just like
Fine.
trimming brush or taking care of a down tree or whatever,
Exactly.
I'll have to check into that. I'll have to check into that.
Now the next one. I don't recall. Conversion by sale. on
Okay,
Mass
now you
General
have a
Law
memo,
61A. Okay.
that sheet of paper that says
Yep.
file copy on the top of it, yes, that is new. Although the commission was dealing with the permitting of the replacement septic system on this property, it turns out that the Mary Chase Farm, they bred and raised and sold horses.
Yes.
And they had a 61A designation
Right.
for a lower assessment, bringing it for agricultural use. The property is up for sale, and there is a pending purchase and sale agreement that came into the commission. And so the folks who are intending to buy the property are not going to seek, I'm not sure you can transfer agricultural designations anyway, but
There is a spot
they
to
had,
do
they
that.
had no intention.
There is a spot to do that.
Yeah, but the people who are intending to buy the property are not going to continue and engage in an activity that would qualify for the agricultural 61A designation. So therefore, the town is offered the opportunity to purchase the property. The obligation would be to meet the price of whatever is being offered for it. But I performed an assessment and have provided the commission with a review based on the normal criteria that we employ. It's not necessarily a property that we would consider as a candidate to buy for open space.
What's the value? Did you?
I don't normally even touch upon this.
I'll be in this week anyway,
Okay.
so. Okay.
It's got structures and stuff, and so this is the opportunity for the commission to direct me
Where's that?
to communicate
Where's
with the select.
Mary Chase Farm?
Right across from Chipper Herrick's, where the goes down off of Weathersfield Street, that wooden bridge
Oh,
that we were
yes,
dealing
yes,
with?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's something to do with it.
Yeah, that's what Camet Engineering just
Right.
did, the soil evaluations. And,
Okay.
yeah, so
I
there's,
I can't see that we want it.
it's not contiguous to anything. You've got those buildings that need to be taken care of, or
Yeah.
the residents, and they're about to upgrade the septic system, so, I mean, you know, it's not a habitable residence with detached barn and,
All right, we've got a bunch of people
Paddocks.
staring at us here.
well, again, I'm looking for the commission to provide you guidance if you wish me to communicate, if you agree with my assessment of not
You
making,
want a motion?
yeah, I guess that would be best.
I move that the town does not,
Investigate
no,
further.
I move that we recommend that the town does not investigate this any further.
And that's the motion. I will second it.
Not pursue a right of first refusal.
This time, I think. There's enough going on. All in favor? Aye.
I-
It's unanimous.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to our 6:45. I mean, excuse me,
7:45.
7:45. This is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018, 7:45 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider the request of a determination of applicability for the application filed by Thomas S. and Sharon Y. Gannon for the proposed soil evaluations for design for a replacement sewage disposal system, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone to border vegetated wetlands at 111 Daniels Road, map 9, parcel lot 26, Raleigh, Mass. You have the floor.
Thank you. Tom Mineta from Thomas Mineta Incorporated, representing the Gannons tonight. We're here for a septic repair for soil testing. We compiled a plan of record plans, and unfortunately the wetlands have been previously flagged off-site, but the buffer zone does fall within our property. So we're here tonight. We're hoping to test outside of that buffer zone, but we're not that confident on the upper soils, so we're here tonight in case we do have to go into the buffer zone. Brent and I walked the site. It slopes from front to back. Again, the site was previously flagged off-site by John DeCruz.
Is this a failure, a sale?
It failed the Title V, yes, and the house will be going on the market.
On a fair market? Not, yeah, okay. And the present system is,
The present system is on this slope down in this area here.
okay.
Okay, so it's down here. There's the driveway coming in, there's a garage on there, there's a flat spot here, and then this, as you can see here, this slopes down.
Right.
The system comes, tank is set near the pool area, and the line comes around and goes down here. So we'll be testing in the area that, we're gonna first try up here. If this doesn't,
Why wouldn't they put it there in the first?
well, that's why we're not that confident. Obviously, they probably would have put it there if there was a case, and recently they had a new water line put in on the uphill near the driveway here, and it was surely and ledgely in very high digging. So we're anticipating that that's going to be the same in that grassy area, and that we will have to go down slope.
So you're gonna try behind it and then go further?
Correct, yeah, we'll be trying in this area here, and then we're pretty confident that we'll get it up in that area, based on the soil maps.
Turn it over to you.
Sure.
You've been there, seen it?
So I've been there, and sometimes as much as I hate to take pictures that are mostly all green, this is a view from down lower on the slope. approximately.
No, this is outside of the bordering vegetated wetland.
This is probably in the buffer zone, yes. The bordering vegetated wetlands are actually off property by just a couple feet on the stone wall. That is the approximate.
This was cleared at one time, obviously.
Well, now what you're doing is you're looking here up where the system is presently installed. This is just to give you an idea that we have, mature pine forest, fairly widely spaced, and yes, it's opened up, got a lot of raspberries and stuff in it because the system was put in there, so it was clear. So when Mr. Mineta is talking about the potential for location of the field, he's talking about the possibility of it being sited off to the side of where the existing field is. But if the soils aren't good in that area, then he would be going further down slope, which then brings him in contact with the 100-foot buffer zone that's coming from that wetlands that's just on the other side of the property line.
Not much of a slope.
Well,
Once you get down
once you
there,
get off of the house, yes, but it does this sort of plateau type thing where you come down rather steeply for about 80 feet.
Right, and then
it gets a more gradual, it's widely
this is
spaced.
the steepest area right here.
Oh.
Getting down to it is the steepest, is the most challenging part of it, actually.
But there isn't a lot of, the density of the large mature trees is not such that it should cause a problem for them to be able to get the relatively small excavators and stuff they need
Right.
to go down there.
And this is just for test systems.
And this is, this is just to establish where the proper area would be to design and site a system. Now, Mr. Mineta did ask me about the possibility of there being consideration for the same permitting for putting the system in, but I checked his application and what we advertised was just for the soil evaluation. So there isn't, because we didn't advertise for that activity, we aren't able to issue this permit
Slow
for
it
it.
up a few weeks, but this time.
Well, it might be actually better knowing where, because of the slopes that has to be dealt with there and where the final positioning is, and therefore how much tree removal and stumping might be involved. Even though we're anticipating just erosion control as being the major type of activity that we get conditioned, it still might be advantageous to see what the final design plans look like in case there's other issues that get dealt with.
Yeah, worst case, assuming that we're in the buffer zone. Right? The whole
Well,
thing would be outside.
and also if getting down there ends up being a challenge or whatever, because we do have to, even though your construction, some of your construction activity is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, anything that might impact it, direct stormwater towards the buffer zone or whatever, has to be taken into consideration also. So holistically, it's possibly better that we actually look at the design proposal for the system instead of trying to speculate at this point in time and figure out what we might need to condition on it. So I have presented the commission with suggested conditions. I just gave a copy to Mr. Mineta. Really, the only thing that comes into focus here because of the trees there is condition number 3, equipment access on the forested portion of the property shall avoid the cutting of any tree 4 inches in diameter or greater when performing the soil testing. We discussed putting the erosion control in place because of the slope, putting it in place down gradient of what we anticipated being the furthest extent, but I'm also proposing to use the compost bark mulch sod, so if they do have to reposition it because they have to explore even further in order to get good soils, that's more doable.
Yeah, I'm not too worried on a standard perk anyway. I mean, it's
Right.
not going to be, it'll be covered that day. So.
Right, exactly.
Right, but again, because it's a slope and because you are disturbing soils, we don't want anything to go visit the wetlands on the neighbor's property.
Any board members have any questions? A lot of people in the audience. Anybody in the audience have any questions?
What does this actually mean? I am the owner of the house, so if we get delayed and we have to do the perk test, Then we have to come back to the board to get an evaluation of if you can actually put in the septic?
No. The impacts that we'd have on the buffer zone.
Okay.
So it doesn't stop us from, it doesn't preclude us from putting the system in the buffer zone,
It just delays us longer.
potentially, if we're in the buffer zone.
I don't foresee any problem, especially on a replacement system. All right.
Long and the short of it, though, you want a functioning system, sir, and you also want a project that doesn't have any detrimental impacts down gradient to another's property or wetland resource areas. So there's enough of a potential in the part of the site that he's investigating that the field might not even be within the 100-foot buffer zone. So until we have to cross that bridge, I wouldn't necessarily start rolling the dice and counting on delays. I would look at the glass as half full and say that you've got a lot of real estate down there that hopefully he'll have a successful soil investigation and he won't have to come back and visit us.
Having been a contractor, you might be getting delayed this time of year more by contractors than by conservation. All right, do I hear a motion to?
So this would be for a negative,
For a negative
option number
finding.
3 with conditions as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. All right, this brings us to our 8 p.m. We have a legal notice from the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh. Public hearing meeting will be held Tuesday, September 11th, 2018, at 8 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider request for the determination of applicability for the application filed by David Jackwith for the proposed soil evaluations for design for replacement sewage disposal system, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of salt marsh, ACEC coastal land subject to storm flowage at 77 Railroad Ave, map 27, parcel lot 103, Raleigh. You have the floor.
Okay, good evening. My name is Chuck Johnson, engineer with CG Johnson Engineering, and I'm here with the owner, Dave Jakewith, who purchased this property in December 2015. And when Brent has a chance, he'll put the site sketch that I put together up on the screen for us. The wetlands have been flagged. In terms of where the property is, if you are on Railroad Ave and the railroad station is on your left-hand side and cross over the tracks, it's the first building on your right-hand side.
Yes.
Air conditioned.
Air conditioned very well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you said we'd see you in about a year, yeah.
I've got a caretaker.
Is that all done, everything?
What?
Was that taken down, the building?
No, not yet. We have permission to take it
Yeah,
down. We were
okay, because
here
that's what you
before.
were here last.
Right.
I haven't been down that way, so I didn't know.
We're ready to take it down, but we want to get through all the boards.
So the salt marsh has been flagged by Bill Manuel from Wetlands and Land Management. And Brent and Bill, myself and Dave walked the property. And so as you're looking, so that's from the salt marsh looking looking at the back of the home. And where the soil testing,
Some of the stakes are for tomatoes, not all the stakes.
Yeah.
They're not for tomatoes, they're for daffodils.
Yeah, really?
They were there. Unbelievable.
Now, was that actually, that's not marsh, actually.
Not up there.
No.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, that's salt marsh.
It does get water up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Brent, if you
You want
can
your
go to-
exhibit back again?
Here we go. Okay, so right there, on the right-hand side is Railroad Ave, and then as you work to the left or to the southwest, you have the dwelling and then the salt marsh behind. So in terms of doing the soil testing, and I've done this before, where we'd be using a mini excavator, similar to a Bobcat on rubber tracks. And what we would do is we would lay down 2x8 sheets of plywood and have the mini excavator run over that. And then the first intent is to do our testing where you see proposed soil testing area A. Essentially, as far up into that slope to the railroad as we can. And ultimately, the type of design that I'm thinking about doing, which some of the members may have seen me present, is something called a bottomless sand filter, which is a very small footprint leaching system with treatment prior to it. And to give you an idea, it tends to be about 1/10 of the size of a normal leaching field. So it's very efficient.
What's the maintenance on it?
The maintenance is once a year. We got approval. I designed the first one in Topsfield in 2005, and at that time, and that was the first one for the state. So at that time, it was quarterly, so 4 times a year we had to do inspections.
Inspection, you have a hatch?
Well,
How do you inspect?
Well, what happens is the system is, so you have a building sewer to a septic tank, 2,000 gallon septic tank, and then following that, there's a secondary treatment unit, which is another tank, which is filled with foam cubes. Okay, so what happens is every 15 minutes or so, there's a little bit of like 3-4 gallons of liquid that's dosed over to the secondary treatment unit called a Waterloo biofilter. And there's a couple of spray nozzles which spray the effluent over the foam cubes. And just as if you're doing dishes at your kitchen sink, just like a sponge, which once a sponge is fully saturated, if you add 1 drop comes out. So picture this concrete box filled with foam cubes, about 4 feet high, and so you have a couple of spray nozzles which are spraying the effluent from the septic tank over these foam cubes, and so that top layer will become saturated and then start dribbling down to the next layer, to the next layer. And so after going through 4 feet of foam cubes, the liquid at the bottom is about 95% cleaner than when you started. So it's not drinking water, but it's getting closer. Certainly, it's like 5% of the strength of normal wastewater.
So then, what do you do with the cubes?
Well, the cubes are in all the systems. I've designed about 45 of these systems so far, and it's designed with a factor of safety. And because residential wastewater is considered low strength, high strength wastewater would be like for restaurants and things like that, where you have a lot of greases and oils and stuff. So you don't really have that with residential wastewater. So then once the effluent trickles down to the bottom, then you have a pump which pumps over to essentially a sandbox. And there are 2 of these, I believe, at least in Raleigh. One on Weathersfield, and one.
There was one on Warehouse Lane.
On Warehouse Lane.
Yeah, right.
That's
Weathersfield Street was Kurt Annan's system, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so basically, the leaching is this sandbox with very expensive sand. It's a concrete sand, but it's extremely clean. And so now, back in 2005, the maintenance was 4 times a year. And then up until about 3 years ago, it was twice a year, and now it's once a year. And the maintenance, what's involved is the service provider goes and checks to make sure the pump in the secondary treatment unit is working, and then also in the septic tank, and then there are these 1.25-inch diameter laterals, like a mini pressure distribution leaching system, and those are all, there's a squirt test done, and they, if they need to flush those out, they will. So once a year, that work is done, and it's a pretty slick system.
How long did the foam cubes last?
Well, this particular technology was approved in Massachusetts in 1996, so 22 years ago, and none of the systems have required for the foam to be replaced. If they did, the system is designed so that the box is easily accessible and those foam cubes could be sucked out and new foam cubes put in. But that's not been required, again, because it's low strength wastewater. So,
Very interesting.
yeah.
All right, now to get back to this, no. You've been down to see.
Well, I've been down here, so I just brought these couple of pictures because really the only issue is coming across the access easement way, which goes right in front of the garage that you can see the overhead door from, which provides water access. There's a gravel road there that goes down to the Rowley River. So coming from that gravel road, you are going across salt marsh. Even though it's mowed salt marsh, it's still salt marsh in most of the cases. The wooden stake that you see right in the foreground, to the left of it is buffer zone, and to the right of it is salt marsh. And so the proposed conditions talk about the same thing of access, of putting down plywood sheets there to keep the equipment from sinking and rutting into the area too much. And then that portion of the rear of the property, which is in the other photograph there, the wooden stakes that are closest to the house are where he intends to put the construction safety fencing when they actually demo the building. But at this point in time, they can be moved out of the way for whatever they need to do in terms of their soil investigations in that area. There's no obstructions, and it's not problematic to gain access to the site and to do what you need to do and then get out. I do recommend that erosion control be put across down gradient, probably on the edge of what's been delineated as being salt marsh to keep any sediment out there. But again, they will more than likely do their work and be all done, have it all backfilled in one day. So
Yeah. And it is very flat.
it is very flat. Yes.
All right. Questions from the board members?
You know, what's the distance between on the side of the house between the house and the property line?
Towards the railroad property line?
Towards Mr. Allen's
Yeah.
house, I think.
Or Mr. Allen's.
The railroad or Mr. Allen's?
The railroad,
Railroad, it's around 11 feet, I think.
11 feet. So in the end, if you have to get in that way, you could get in, but
There used to be an access there, wasn't it?
It's a real steep slope.
It is difficult.
I
It would
understand.
be difficult.
Yeah.
it would be
Because from-
difficult, but you could.
Well, there's a drop off halfway down the house where the
Yeah.
little box out is, that was a vestibule, and there's a retaining wall that drops about 8 feet right there. But on the banking side, if you went over onto the railroad land a little bit, you could possibly get back there.
Not
I
if the
have-
railroad's got anything to do with it.
Well, I have,
Would there be a permit involved with that?
I have
Then you
rights to
have
go down that driveway all the way to the water. It's all three
Well,
houses.
the reason I'm asking is 50 years from now, when it's time to replace the system, if it goes, which it may not, and you don't have authority to get across your neighbor's land, then they have to figure out how to get there.
by that time, the oceans will have risen enough that they'll just be able to bring a barge in
So
and do
the
whatever
system is
maintenance
gonna
on
be
it.
underwater then?
Then we move the system onto the barge.
I can't talk.
You better not.
Okay, any further questions? Brent, you've been down, you had,
Yeah, so I'm proposing suggested conditions for it if the commission so chooses. It would be a negative determination option number 3 with the conditions as presented. I believe I distributed copies
Yes.
to you.
yes.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's very interesting on that, because that's gonna be coming into play a lot on the real coastal areas, probably.
Yeah,
It sure beats a destroy letter, something like that, you know?
and in fact, I learned about this particular technology from a group in Rhode Island, at the University of Rhode Island in 2005.
Yeah.
And so that's where I got the idea to do it, do that.
But they must have this done, they must be attempting to use this down at Cape or the Islands, I would think. Because,
Yep. This is just the secret for the green card.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you. Yeah, I didn't see any tonight with this. So. I don't know. Gotta run
Oh, I
me.
don't have to wait. I'm just surprised the applicant or their representative, I'm surprised the applicant and their representative aren't here, but,
Oh. Would you rather me shuffle this around? Is there
no,
any,
you
any
can,
reason to?
you can
Does it
read,
need to
you,
be here?
you can read it. Well, I mean, it's up to the commission.
Well, you already know what you've written, so.
Why don't you read it?
Okay. We'll go through it. We can stop it.
Can present it, I mean, we can just suspend it to see if for some reason they're delayed or something.
The reason why we'd have to stop it is if one of us had a question, I would think. Yeah. All right, this is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018, at 8:15, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider a request for the determination of applicability to the application filed by Matthew Chisholm for the proposed cutting and removal of mature white pine and oak trees, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 708 Weathersfield Street, map 10, parcel 10, lot D in Rowley. All right. Now, why don't you take it over at this point,
Yeah, so let me just get some information.
since they don't have a
Up there
representative.
on the screen.
Why are these being taken down?
Because there's a very, let's see, let me phrase this the right way. There's more than a reasonable chance that a significant number of these large mature white pines are suffering from black carpenter ants in the center of them. And there's no outward visible signs, but one went in a storm. And when I show you the pictures, you'll understand why this is causing concerns to the property owner. And instead of we discussed, when the commission and I discussed the protocol for dealing with hazardous trees that provided a risk to property owners or occupied dwellings or private property, you charged me with the responsibility that if a project seemed to rise above just, a few trees here and there, and there was the possibility for detrimental impacts to the 100-foot buffer zone or to bordering vegetated wetlands, that we would do a request to determine applicability. And this project, I believe, rises to the size and nature that it should be governed by a request to determine applicability. So let me just get into the right folder here.
Seen an awful lot of that.
Yeah. So let me just go. So this is Weathersfield Street just before it gets to the Raleigh-Georgetown line. And the Chisholms, I think is how it's pronounced, also own this lot here, but as near as I can tell, most all the trees that we're talking about are in this area. And there's 2 oak trees which actually show up in this photo right at the beginning of the driveway. So there is another sketch on an aerial that I prepared that will kind of lay things out a little bit better. So,
Is there a stream there?
there is, but again, it's almost right exactly at the Georgetown-Raleigh line.
Yeah,
It
I know
goes-
that.
I'm not sure that it has a real defined channel once it goes in there, so it kind of spreads out to this sort of emergent freshwater marsh, wooded swamp area. But predominantly, the bulk of the trees, which are mostly white pines, are all located in this area, and I did measure them, and based on their height and their relationship to the parking area as well as the residents, there is the potential that they could reach the residents if they toppled over. So now I'll go to showing you actually the site here. Actually, maybe I should talk about it. So what we are talking about, there are 3 red maples. So those are the only hardwoods that are alive that are involved in this, and they're 12 to 14 inch in diameter. There are 3 white pines that are 20 to 24 inches in diameter, 3 white pines that are 26 to 30 inches in diameter, and 3 white pines that are 30 inches to 36 inches in diameter involved in this. Now, these are the 2 dead oaks that are down near the end of the driveway as it meets the street. The reason they are of concern is because he has a little hammerhead parking area there, a little turnoff where he sometimes parks vehicles. So those oaks could present a risk to those vehicles at that location. So I actually suggested that they be included, and this is just showing you a spot looking into the woods. You can see the trunk of one of the oaks right here and the trunk of the other oak coming right down in there. They're only about 20 to 25 feet off of the edge of the lawn there. They're at least 60 to 70 feet tall, so they would definitely reach across the driveway and might possibly impact where they park vehicles. So here's the start of, he put paper plates, he hung them on the trees to identify them. So the paper plate is anywhere from a minimum 8 to 10 inches, so you can start getting a little idea of the scale of the trees, the size of the trunks that I was listing off there. And then you can see these other ones. Just beyond here, where there's a much more pronounced, I think those are might be cinnamon ferns. That's approximately where the edge of bordering vegetated wetlands is. So some of these trees are definitely within what would normally be a 25-foot no cut, no disturb, but the rest of them, as they come up the slope and get closer to the driveway, are definitely within the 100-foot buffer zone. So this is an area that's all subject to the commission's regulations. So there's another one of the trees. It's got a little bit of a lean to it. And here's some more. These are the ones that are down more in the backyard. But again, I taped them off and measured them going up. They've got enough height that they would come up and reach the driveway, if not possibly the tops, actually hit a corner of the house where they've got a screened-in porch.
No, I think it's very prudent of the landlord to address that. It's going to be a lot cheaper doing it this week than it would be.
Right. So I did propose. So there's two questions that come into play here, which on your sheet, I didn't know if the commission wished to direct that there be some replanting to provide some propensatory regeneration, because once those trees are removed, there is nothing else. There's really no shrub understory. There's really no other trees to provide a canopy there.
There will be.
Oh, there will be. Yes, there will be. But again, I need to give the options to the commission, because this is a large, significant project. You are talking approximately an area that probably from the furthest pine tree measured to the back ones is probably 200 feet, and it's anywhere in width from a minimum of 30 to 40 feet to a maximum of 50 feet that the whole canopy and overstory is being removed.
Well, Sam would probably be the expert on as far as this committee on that, but to me, it's basically a woods. If he's not going to use it for yard, there'll be something growing up there.
Yeah, you can't really use it.
Right.
Except for this one area here, you see that's level. The whole rest of it is on a slope. The house and the driveway are.
I wouldn't want to try to plant a nice 10-foot maple in the middle of that. I mean, the roots and
You
stuff.
don't want to replant.
Well, you could buy 5 to 6 foot container stock and
Yeah.
and easily put it.
But like I
down.
say, Sam was the expert on
Shrubs.
that.
Some shrubs of some nature. Because you're gonna, that land's
Some
gonna be almost.
sweet pepper bush or some dogwood or
Yeah.
something in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Is there
and
any-
otherwise it's gonna be totally open to the
Right.
rain, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that.
So you think they should plant something?
Yeah, within the,
This is going to be a
25
significant impact to
within
that
the
section of buffer
25.
zone, which again isn't developed long.
But he's not stumping it or anything.
Well, no. Actually, if I didn't put that in here, that should be one of the.
yeah.
Yeah,
One of the
I would not.
requirements was
I would
not-
not. They can cut them right
Yeah,
down
the
below, but not.
stumps may be ground in place if that is
If you stump it,
desired.
you could lose
but,
everything
But
else.
no,
Yeah.
no. There'd be two, and there's absolutely no reason for them. That would just be so much extra added expense to this project.
And it would destroy the other trees that
Right.
weren't taken. Well, if Sam suggested it, I'm all for it.
Is there anything we hear about the removal of the wood from the site?
Yes. Yep.
With ants, I hope they're removing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It specifies that it be to be taken.
Yeah.
At least I thought it did. It's supposed to. I'll make sure
That's
that
what I didn't.
I'll make sure that it does. It's supposed to, and maybe I just missed pasting that into this.
Well, number 8 is following tree removal,
Yeah.
Right.
but that's not as close as it gets.
Yeah, I think I may have forgotten I may have lost it in my cutting and pasting from the template.
Now, Sam, what would you recommend? Just a certain number, just
I haven't been there, I can't say. You got an idea?
dozen?
Oh, at least 2 dozen.
2 dozen, okay.
Again,
That's good enough.
it's like 200 feet by 30 feet, so,
Yeah.
I mean, there probably is some seed source a little bit in there, but again, it is gonna be it's gonna be basically a funny-looking clear cut.
And any bushes that we suggest that go in there will impede the growth of a larger canopy stock?
No, because they'll be relatively small to start off with, so.
Not now like that.
Yeah, but you want to try to avoid creating the same problem again.
Well,
So
yeah, no,
it's-
I agree,
you know,
I
it's
agree.
50 cents or $1.
Well, even if you did propose some white pines or red maples to be planted, you're going to be talking 50 to 60 years before they even begin to get anywhere near a height that is going to start arousing any concern again. But again, if we're just talking about shrubs, well, we don't have to worry about it. We'll do something like sweet pepper bush. I'll look up and see whether there's some type of dogwood that might be good in there or whatever. Lots of times those plants are one of the types of plants that's recommended for buffer zone
Yeah.
planting. Some of them actually do well even in the wetlands themselves. Sweet pepper bush does, but it will also tolerate drier sites too.
All right, so should we say?
Well, I got one other question.
Okay.
So the other question was, I also asked the property owner if they were possibly amenable to those trees down right next to the bordering vegetated wetlands line that were the furthest distance away, if they could just be topped, if we left like 30 feet of trunk for habitat value, just left it standing there, that wouldn't be tall enough that if it did fall, it couldn't even reach the driveway.
Ants are habitat too,
Well,
so on termites.
they're already there. Well, yeah, but this is why it's up for discussion to seek your advice and guidance in regards to this.
Where are the ants gonna go?
They're gonna go into the house or the next tree over that's healthy. So I would rather see the trees.
They'll go into
So
the
that's-
wetlands.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any real benefit in leaving a tree because there's gonna be enough stuff falling around there that will help.
And anyway, this is a typical site for eastern white pine. Eastern white pine does not particularly like to have its root systems wet, but it will tolerate it and it will grow right along the edge
Okay.
on it. So there probably aren't any more large white pines like this actually going into the bordering vegetated wetlands. It probably transitions to being more of the maples and swamp oaks and stuff in there.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's up to the rest of the board. I would think that this project is okay. Obviously, there should be some replanting. I just assume if the problem is because of bugs in there, I just soon have the trees down if it were my trees.
Yep. No, that's
And
fine.
as long as the individual's okay with that, I would think that would.
So we could leave some short sections, trunks of the red maples.
Sure.
That's not,
Yeah.
they're not subject to the ants. Okay, again, I'm just looking for options to try and preserve some of the value, some of the habitat value of that section of buffer zone and not just totally.
I like to see this because if landowners would take more concern and there'd be less problems, especially if you lived in California. But,
Let's not go there.
yeah, I know it. All right, so what do we need on this? A motion to,
Yeah, it would be a negative determination, option number 3, with the conditions as discussed, with the addition of, I've got to put the verbiage in there about removal of the woods, canopy, branches,
No
or whatever
stumping.
from the site. The no stumping's already in there,
Okay.
and then put some specificity to the recommendation of some shrubs as a replacement planting instead of trees
Yeah,
on that. So-
When you say you're gonna cut out the replacement trees.
Right,
Question.
and then I talk about replanting some shrubs
Yeah.
to try and restore some vertical structure to the plant community there.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Aye.
Good.
Okay, let's see.
All right, that brings us to our next item. And Mr. Demento just came in at the right time, so this is a legal notice. The Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, is amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018, at 8:30, Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider the request of the determination of applicability for the application filed by Bill Demento, Harbor Master, Town of Raleigh, for proposed repaving of a 20 by 170 boat launch ramp, possibly within the bank of a 200-foot riverfront area on the Raleigh River, land subject to coastal storm flowage, ACEC at 100 Warehouse Lane, map 26, parcel 6 in Raleigh, Mass. You have the floor, Bill.
Good evening. So this is a repair. The last time we did it was about 20 years ago. I've been harbor master now since 1979. When I started, half the ramp was just gravel and the other half was hot top. And we hot topped the lower half shortly thereafter, primarily for safety reasons for town citizens. And about 20 years ago, we repaved the whole thing. It needed it again. And now we're back 20 years ago where we've got some potholes in it, and it's going to go to disrepair really, really fast now. Brent brought up a couple of pictures of it.
Yeah, so we'll just start off just here, just to review for folks. We've got the boat launch ramp coming directly off of Warehouse Lane with some floats and docks there. That's mostly your harbor master.
Yeah, this
Docks,
is
isn't it? Or
this
is
is
that shellfish and you're over here?
I'll steal you one.
Yeah.
This is the harbor master for the shellfish and the patrol boat and the
Okay.
pump out boat. And this is the town launch ramp right here that has existed for hundreds of years. This is the new dock system that we put in a couple of years ago. And the launch ramp here that I'm talking about repaving the full length. We've got an area right here that's eroded pretty badly, and we're starting to crack up, so the time has come. We're just looking to do general maintenance and repave the ramp.
Have you talked to Newbury?
I haven't, I've
They
talked
haven't
to,
touched theirs.
yeah,
but
I've talked
that's
to
the way they're
Mike,
going.
it's Mike Riley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked with him.
Well,
And,
I'm just bringing up pictures of your deteriorating ramp.
oh, yeah.
The worst part's lower than that, yeah.
Yeah, it's down in the center. I don't know if you got a picture of it. Yeah, there you go. That's where it's starting to go. And then, and it's just going to lift from there.
But they were given that by the state.
They were given that by the state. I'm not 100% sure how that works over there because
They aren't either, that's why they haven't put it in.
Yeah, they.
I went to a couple meetings and the connections of what's gonna go.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the story is because if they accept monies from the state, then they're obliged to open that to the public.
They already have, I mean, that was originally built.
But
You
they
just can't
have.
use, you just can't use the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think if the state wanted to press it, we won't get into it now.
Yeah.
There might be some different decisions.
No, I just didn't know whether that was, but I don't care. If it comes up in 20
Was it the
years, I
state
won't
that
be
gave
here.
them the planks to do that?
The cement plant, it's a new thing that they're trying and just to solve this problem. They're not connected to anything except each other.
Right, right. It's actually a modern method used in lakes and other coastal
Right.
areas where they take large concrete tiles or planks, and they've got an abraded surface, and they've got holes through the center that they can tie them together with a heavy steel cable so that they don't move. And they actually work quite well.
Yeah, I think they used one of those on the Merrimack in Haverhill, I think.
I haven't seen one yet, and they haven't either, that's why they haven't done anything.
I think there's something like that.
Well, it's the connections that
They
we're-
used something that was.
Yeah, I've seen it used up in the lakes.
Lake's different than salt water.
Right.
Running ice.
Over time, the concrete, it's going to be difficult unless it's a special blend to hold up. The salt water will break it down pretty quickly. But, no, we did look at that years ago.
So this is 20 years?
You're looking at 20 years worth of wear and tear.
Well,
And it stood up pretty well.
We won't have to worry again. right?
No, unfortunately. It stood up pretty well. But if I let it go any further, a combination of the boat traffic and the ice are going to continue to rip it apart. So
You're not going to do it this year.
I'll probably do it this fall,
This summer.
because in the spring things happen so fast. All of a sudden we go from rain to heavy sun, and then it's going to be problematic.
Yeah.
So I'll
Okay.
probably do it this fall. We had talked about trying to do it during the summer, but greenhead season came about, and we decided that we'd wait till the fall. So basically all that's going to happen is they'll wash it down with a hose. There won't be any chemicals used. We'll plan it for an extreme low tide around the moon so that we can pave as much of it as possible. I am looking at putting a smaller version of one of those planks at the bottom because there's a pretty good drop off right now. It becomes a bit of a hazard. Some of the trailers will literally fall off of it at dead low tide and break axles. And from there we pave up. The side towards Curly's is broken off quite a bit. The plan is to put some small riprap there, just clean stone on the edge, heavy enough so that it won't wash away, it won't hold away, and it'll be rolled and compacted so that it'll stay there, and that'll protect the edge. This side stays pretty much level with the mud, and we've not had any issues with the side that the ramp's on. And
So you're not milling it or anything, you're just going to pave right
Recap.
over?
pave over it, yeah, just
Okay.
wash it down with a hose to remove the mud and silt, and then they'll put an emulsion coat over it that gets sealed in between the 2-inch layer of asphalt that will get rolled in with a 5-ton roller. So all within one tide, so it'll be completed one day, one tide.
I'll turn it over to Brent.
Well, you have before you, and Bill's gonna need to read through those things. That's what I kind of came up today. I kind of searched over hill and yon to try and get some specific advice about this type of project, and they either didn't want to talk to me or they didn't want to commit, because I didn't get very much feedback in how to appropriately condition this. So this is kind of what I came up with. Trying not to be intrusive, and the only thing I could anticipate was that possibly sort of put sock as a perimeter around it while they're doing all the brushing and sweeping or whatever. I know. It's
got
one of those
500
things you
people
look
waiting.
at and you got mud to the left of you and mud to the right of you, so you're kind of wondering why you're.
Just go for coffee. Don't worry.
Well,
The guys are digging thousands of pounds of clams 500 feet away.
again, I'm looking for advice on this because this is the first type. This type of project has never ever come before me in my 24,
How
25
often do you
years of
wash that
commissioning.
ramp? You don't, do you?
I generally don't. Occasionally, if we get a real heavy flood tide,
Newbury has to wash theirs almost weekly.
people ask if we rinse it down, and I ask the fire department to get down with a
Yeah.
forestry truck, and they'll give it a quick rinse, maybe once a season when it gets really,
I
really
mean,
bad.
that's
all.
amazing, actually.
Yeah, and we're pretty lucky.
Yeah,
Pretty
so
lucky.
I wouldn't be.
I
worried.
mostly just wanted to, if they do some cutting on the edges and stuff, I just wanted to make sure that chunks of asphalt didn't go rolling down and going off. That's all.
They won't float far.
I know they won't flow. Again, just, whatever.
I wouldn't worry.
I
as
have no
much.
parental connections to
No, if
these
you see other
conditions,
ramps,
so you can.
Brent, if you saw other ramps, you'd say, my God, it looks like it's washed weekly. You'd have to watch Newbury every week to get like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I launch
just
over
the
there during
tigers.
duck season, and we have to be careful.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, break your neck. But I wouldn't be as worried. I understand your concern and feel as though you have to say something. But and as far as putting the large stone down, no, seriously, that's your job. You paid for it. And as far as putting the large stone down, they'll be set and they're not going to move.
It'll be set, it'll be compacted.
Yeah.
With a 5-ton roller, so.
Oh, you're actually going to roll
Yeah,
it?
we're actually gonna roll it, that's all part of the process.
I was
So it'll
just,
stay.
yeah,
It doesn't-
yeah, fine as long as it's before the ice comes, but that'll be all done.
The last time we did it 20 years ago, we didn't do a very good job of putting heavy riprap in, and we put it in kind of loosely.
When's the last time you put sand in? We were in high school?
25 years ago.
Okay.
Back in the day when, frankly, we didn't have any regulations with regard to the wetlands, and the town used to.
Well, that's not kind of
Used to bring sand in.
regulations.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we
I
had
signed a
guy pull it down
recorded
there.
order
Swimming.
Well, maybe it's
with,
long.
with
Oh,
Mass
yeah.
Public
Yeah.
Works for putting sand there, for excavating out the subsoil and bringing in sand. I found a,
Oh, when the wharf was built?
no, for installing a beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, recorded to allow, based on approval from Mass Public
Gotta
Works.
be back in the 60s.
Gotta be. Because
Or
what
it
used
might
to,
even been earlier than that. It may have been 48 or
what
58 or
what
something
used to
like that.
happen is Cranes Beach would clean their parking lot every year from the sand that would blow in the winter. And the towns, municipalities would come over with their trucks and they'd grab some
Pick
sand,
it up.
and Raleigh would put sand. It was a beautiful beach back in the day.
I know.
And a lot of people, my age, your age, remember swimming down there, having lifeguards down
Had the
there.
diving board.
Having the diving
Yeah.
board, having a recreation committee that had a swimming program down there.
And the moms would sit up there on the bench,
And
swatting mosquitoes.
Right.
I've spent $5,000 twice now to have the green, whatever that type of grass is.
Eelgrass?
Is it eelgrass? I'm not sure, removed from the beach area just to try to make it look better and make it look a little more usable. But Brent and I have talked about some beach restoration work. I've asked a couple of Boy Scouts working on their Eagle Scout projects to look at a project, to do a beach restoration project, and it's been a little bit over their heads. And
Yeah, I would think.
it's, it would be nice to have a little place like that, but then again, I respect what we're up against, so.
I wonder if they'd even be used nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to say.
Well,
Let's just get it hooked up
I'm
first.
not sure, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say, it's probably just best to take
Yeah.
care of the facilities that are there, because I doubt. those-
Yeah, so as far as to redo that, put the stone in and pack it, which is perfect. I mean, anybody have any problems with that? Issues? Anybody from the audience have any issues with that?
Questions or comments?
And did you have anything more to add?
Nope.
All right.
So do we want to go with a temporary erosion control, or it's gonna be done within about
It'll be done in the same
5-hour window? And
Well, probably all I'm gonna do is change that to require that there be a roll on hand in case it's needed for some
And the
Some
spill
sort of
containment.
some sort
control
of
chunks or
containment
whatever,
material.
yeah, something, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta have that in.
Even it's just to put down, to catch stuff rolling down, so they can just sweep it up while they're sweeping the rest of the stuff up,
Okay.
just to act as a stop, more than anything else, probably just a 25-foot cord, a straw bottle. I'll rework that condition.
And a whole bunch of cones, so some idiot doesn't.
Drive down there.
Hey, I'm gonna have my boat ready to go in the
I
water.
wanna take it
that
out.
day.
All right, do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
Well, negative
The
determination.
negative determination with the
With edited conditions. as
edited
discussed.
conditions that we have.
So moved.
Second,
Thanks.
all in favor?
Aye.
Just give Ruby a call again, just to, that
Yeah,
might
I'll
be
talk.
perfect to put down the very end.
I'll talk to Mike about that. I didn't realize that was donated by the state.
That whole thing.
Yeah, well, I get a letter every year, the selectmen get a letter.
They
every
just
year.
don't let you use anything as far as parking,
Yeah,
so therefore they,
the state would give us millions of dollars to turn that into a public launch ramp.
same thing, no parking.
Yeah, exactly.
As with Catherine Park, look at. But, yeah, but I think actually that somebody in Newbury would probably love you if you put that at the end, just to see how it works.
Maybe like to donate these.
Yeah, tell them we'll test it.
Well, yeah,
We'll test them.
yeah, the
And
person
we'll
to
pass
talk
it
to
in
would
the
probably
system.
be Mr. Boyle, Eddie Boyle.
Oh, yeah?
He's the one, I guess, that's setting it all up for him.
Okay, I know it. Very well. It's a good idea. Thank you.
And if you have that at the very end piece of the worst case scenario, you haul it back out with a backhoe next year because it's not working.
If it's not working,
Then fix it.
Exactly. Good. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
All right, that brings us to our next item, 8:45. This is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018, 8:45, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider the notice of intent for an application filed by William Herrick, Lucia Herrick Realty Trust for proposed construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, utilities, clearing and grading, possibly within 200-foot riverfront area of unnamed stream, 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 699 Able Street, map 8, parcel 27, in Raleigh. You have
Good
the
evening.
floor.
Bill Manuel from Wetlands and Land Management. And this is a notice of intent for the construction of a house and driveway, as you just said. It's, the driveway access has to pass through a riverfront area of an unnamed stream that enters under Route 133, Haverhill Street, and then immediately turns to the west. The 200-foot riverfront zone is here. I flagged the wetlands, and the commission issued an ORAD in the springtime. So the wetland flags in the riverfront area, they've all been verified by your commission. This is the 100-foot buffer zone from the wetlands. So you can see that our driveway passes through the buffer zone, and a portion of the house is in the wetlands. A portion of the house is actually, or it's in the buffer zone to the wetlands, and a portion of the house is outside the buffer. The proposed leaching field is 100% outside of the buffer zone. That's already, the design has already been approved by the Board of Health. So there is an existing woods road that enters off of Haverhill Street, and that's what we have capitalized on to minimize disruption on the site. The biggest thing on this site is there's the riverfront area, and you're supposed to do an alternatives analysis, which I did. It's included in the notice of intent. The only other alternative that we evaluated was, okay, well, can we get to the building site outside of the riverfront area? And there is obviously this way right here. But you can see from the contours, this is a very steep hillside, completely wooded in the front here.
On a corner.
What's that?
On a corner.
It is on a corner, and it would involve clearing and basically tearing up this entire hillside to grade it to put this driveway in, and we probably still need a high retaining wall to keep everything in place. Before we put the pen to paper, I had an informal meeting with Brent. I mean, it's obvious that this is the best way to enter the site, and I put our heads together. I believe we're in agreement. We took a walk out there. The driveway was staked. We took a walk out there this week already? Last week. We saw the driveway, the center line of the driveway, the house box, and the leaching field. And this is obviously the best way to go. Even though it's in a riverfront area, it's the best way to go to get to the back of the site. The project is compliant with the riverfront area impact thresholds. Because the property is so big, there's actually about 91,000 square feet of riverfront on the site. We're altering about
Since he isn't building a
5,938.
football stadium, we're not running up against that.
Right. So we are well under the 10% threshold of riverfront area impacts. We show, that my yellow line here is erosion control. In the field, we noted on the plan that, hey, we don't see anything down here. We talked about just maybe adding some additional erosion control in this area where the driveway is graded to shed water off in this direction. I don't see why we shouldn't just continue that right down to the street. If anything, even though it's fairly level in this area, it will serve as a limit of work. So,
Well, I was going to say, you know, Commission now has a protocol in regards to a two-step project start, where the first step is reviewing limits of work and where cutting is going to occur and making sure that it's doubly marked, not only where the cutting is going to occur, but where non-cutting takes place. So there's double, hopefully, double signage that keeps cutting occurring only where it's supposed to. And number two, yes, that was going to be one of the recommendations, to have some flexibility in regards to deciding where erosion control is going to be positioned. So it's now a two-step process, where the first step is evaluating, marking, and verifying limits of work, and also reviewing where erosion control is proposed, and then coming back later on after the cutting has occurred and actually inspecting the installation of the erosion control.
Erosion control, you're talking sock?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Compost or bark mulch, sock.
Does the board have any questions? Ms. Brent has been at the site, if you would just...
Well, I just want to review for the commission. I want to make sure that all the commissioners, because again, the regulations through the alternatives analysis do actually try to steer access to the site to avoid. I mean, the first step is avoidance of a resource area if possible. In this particular situation, there would be an awful lot of earth removal that would have to occur, a lot of site grading, as Bill mentioned, more than likely the imposition of structural retaining walls in order to gain access to this area over here and put residents in there. Whereas there is pre-existing woods road, it's very evident, you can see it from the terrain. And also, as we went in there, the piles of dumped debris also confirmed that there was a woods road there that people are able to back into out of sight of the street and rid themselves of some of their construction debris. So there's some piles of surface debris that will need to be cleaned up. But that really does provide, so what that results in is the least amount of earth disturbance and new clearing occurring at the closest proximity to the bank and that riverine corridor, which is identified as being prime wildlife habitat, the riparian areas. So in a sense, you're minimizing project disturbance, you're minimizing earth removal, and basically it makes more sense since there's already a corridor there to access. Now, the only thing that one has to do that I talked to Mr. Manuel about, and that was putting crushed stone infiltration strip, you'd call it a rumble trench or whatever, along the edge of the driveway, because that's going to be a normal pathway for stormwater. And so pitching the road a little bit so that it sheds it off, and then having that crushed stone infiltration trench along there is going to do two things. It's going to delineate the edge of the driveway, and it's also going to provide an infiltration pathway for the runoff coming off of that driveway, instead of having it just shoot all the way down here and bringing it in the closest proximity towards the unnamed stream.
Is there water in that main stream? Right?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Flow it?
Well, that's
Well,
the
that's-
one that we keep having the muskrat beaver issue on the other side of the road.
But the last time I checked it.
We didn't actually go over there because technically that's off property, so we didn't actually go and visit it.
Yeah, because last time I did visit it, I was gonna help Pat put up a deceiver there. It was actually, right. But that was before the.
On that side of the road, there's usually a big enough plunge pool that it usually
Oh,
maintains
it's
water
bigger.
in there, even if it's flowing or not. Let's see, what's there? We're also going to, there's a new residence was constructed over here. We're going to evaluate and tie in the no-cut, no-disturbance zone to try and get it to match up as close as possible. And again, propose to have some posts with signs mounted out there, even though it's technically in the woods. It will just serve to notify the property owner that that's a regulated area in case they do get any ideas about enlarging the areas. I think the project as proposed has got a fair amount of adequate roam around the house. I mean, there isn't any place there to have a little baseball field or have a tennis court because it is all on a slope, but there's going to be enough lawn area around the house that it should give whoever decides to occupy it, it should make them feel claustrophobic. And there didn't appear to be any large white pines that were harboring carpenter ants that would pose a risk to the structure as we start off here. So it's not, the house isn't being proposed to be in a grove of large pines. We had
Can't
a
think of
proposal a
anything
little
else.
earlier on here that we had carpenter ant problem in a grove of pines.
So, any questions?
So if the commission is amenable to the project as proposed with those conditions as well as specific conditions that the commission imposes for the construction of a single-family residence, the roof runoff is being infiltrated. You can see the indicators for the subsurface infiltrators, so the stormwater is being appropriately infiltrated.
How long is that driveway? Approximately.
Probably 100 feet. 1 to 20.
200 feet approximately.
All right, do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So that won't, that water will be all discharged before it gets there, off the driveway.
Well, again, pitching the driveway just slightly to the northwest there is going to let the water all go off instead of it acting. I mean, obviously, because of the way the contours are and with you bearing to the right a little bit, if you pitched it in towards that contour, you'd just end up shunting it down, just forming a little flume in a sense and bringing it all the way down. But
Soils are very sandy out there, so.
Yeah, I gathered because of no trouble, no, it was either gonna be ledge or sand, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill.
See you later, Chip.
brings us to our next item, 9 o'clock. All right, this is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended, the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018, at 9 o'clock, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider the amended order of conditions, application filed by Jeff Clark, Clark Associates, LLC, the proposed amendment of construction of a duplex residence with associated driveway, septic system, possibly with a 100-foot buffer zone and bordering vegetated wetlands at 200 Riverfront area off Pasture Brook at land off Church Street, map 24, parcel 137, lot 1 in Rowley. Good afternoon, you got it?
How you doing?
Good, how you been?
Good, thanks.
Good.
What we're basically doing, we already have an approved
Yeah.
everything for this lot. What we've done is reduce the size of the building by 20%. And we moved it a little further out of the wetlands, away from the wetlands. And I grabbed the wrong one. But the previous building is here, closer to this wetland line. We pulled it up here a little bit and
Okay.
reduced it by 20%.
And that gets it out of our territory?
No. It gets it further,
I thought it was
further out
easier.
of the territory. Well, I should have tried Lion, but I figured Brent would pick
Well, I
up
know
on
he
that.
listens to everything. Okay, so at this point, let me turn it over to our agent.
Right, so, so Mr. Clark provided a little summary, so just let me review for the commission that I'm just going to read his language. We were having electricity issues, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so changes to the buildings on the Church Street lot include reducing the size of the buildings by 500 square feet per unit, also changing the locations of the building, which has resulted in 1,918 square feet less of disturbance in the 100-foot buffer zone. So, and just today, I was provided with this PDF. I have not received hard copies of this. Is this going to be a stamped plan that's submitted to us? Or is this just the
That-
building outline?
Isn't that the one in all the packages?
No,
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 first time I've
no.
ever seen it.
This is the first time I've seen that. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Oh, we included the wrong one, because if you notice the date,
You gave us this. Remember I had a conversation with you about how we were going to need a real plan instead of just outlines of the buildings?
oh, yeah. That, and you are gonna have that.
Well, we have to have that. The building inspector tells me that that's nothing new, that he's going to have it before he would even dare give you a building permit. So
Right.
I wanted to make sure that we weren't asking for something that no other
No, no.
department was asking for.
We do have the existing plan. It doesn't show on, what I did is I changed engineers. The engineer I had got a little pricey. So I changed engineers, and the first engineer doesn't want to give me the PDF that I paid for, so that we can change it.
All right.
Anyway, we need to have
We need to have,
stamped,
yeah.
engineered plans, and the question just for the commission is, do you want to just make that, in amending the order, we can add conditions to the order in the process of amending it? So it's perfectly
I have no problem.
perfectly acceptable for the commission to make a decision tonight and vote to issue an amended order, and we'll just include a condition that we need to receive 2 sets of printed, wet stamped, original signature, professionally approved and licensed, professional, prepared plans prior to initiation of the project. Like I said, the building inspector tells me he would need those before he could issue a building permit anyway. So if the commission is okay with us just putting that as a new condition, is, in my estimation, the changes on this project do not result in nullifying any of the previous conditions that we have, we just need the new plan. And now, the reason for issuing a new permit, though, was to be able to reference the new plan. So if you're going to have those engineered plans produced within, say, 14 days.
Oh, easily.
Then the commission can just vote tonight, and it'll hold off, and we'll get those plans, and then we'll issue the amended order so it can actually reference and cite those plans.
You don't have a problem with it, Sam, do you?
Well, yeah, I kind of have a problem because I don't even know what we're approving here. Are they two-story building?
Yes.
Okay, so it's two-story, single building with 2 units in it.
Correct.
And the access is along the north side.
Wasn't there a question, weren't you going to change your access, or is that why we waited so
No.
long? No?
No, there was a question of water, but.
There was
Yeah,
water,
there was,
water
yeah.
service in the street, which had absolutely nothing to do with affecting the plans that the commission had previously
All right,
approved.
there's some reason this
Well,
is
there
ringing a
was
bell
a
for 2 weeks.
condition, there was a condition on there or something.
Yeah, it was a couple of meetings ago.
No, no.
Oh, no, years
No.
ago.
No, this is
No,
years.
Didn't this just come up to,
Well, he filed for an extension
Extension,
because I
yeah.
alerted
Yeah.
him that his 3-year term of his first order was expiring in August, I believe it was. And so he requested an extension, and the commission extended
what's your schedule
the
of
order
this?
for a year.
Well, I was gonna mow it and get it staked out and get it going, starting immediately.
We did not have any contingencies.
No.
I didn't think by reducing the size of the building and pulling it further away
From
I
the
just
border
gotta
of
see where I
Bedford.
am, yeah. We pulled,
Yeah, the building is further away from
and we pulled the whole building like that.
the,
So I didn't even realize until Brent pointed it out that I needed to change anything.
I'm not saying that I've got a problem, okay? I'm saying that I want to know what I'm approving, if I approve. And I had
It's
simple, basic questions that are answered by that, and if I had that in front of me to begin with, I wouldn't have classed the question.
Right.
So,
How about you guys?
Well, I have this, I wonder
Right.
where he was originally on this job. And where are you moving to? Like just,
Roughly, we were right in here,
okay,
very roughly, and we're moving it more like,
okay.
that's all it is.
I'm just trying to visualize here.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think we can probably do approval conditionally.
Well, no, you can vote to issue, and just as we normally do, contingent upon the office receiving stamped and engineered plans within 14 days.
Is there anything else you need to know from? Okay.
Do I hear such a motion? Well,
Well,
did you have anything else you want to do? You can't say anything because you don't have the plan, so.
Well, but I understand that
We can work with
we've
it.
we've already approved this exact similar construction. It's just the fact that the configuration of the buildings has been changed a little bit, and the overall central location of the structures themselves has been repositioned a further distance away from the edge of vegetated wetlands, but it's still within the jurisdictional 100-foot buffer zone. But that's why I say, so when you have a request to amend an order, because the project is changed, as I advised Mr. Clark and read the policy from DEP, the only way to be able to cite these new plans in the permit is to go through the amending process. The amending process causes you to look and say, are any new wetland resource areas impacted? The answer is no. So the same wetland resource areas are impacted by this project, but its proximity is actually a little further away in the 100-foot buffer zone. So
That
that's
doesn't affect your septic, right?
nope. Right. So that's considered a positive in regard. And then the other part of the review is to look at what you issued before and say, are all the requirements, all the conditions in that original order, are they still appropriate for this project? And in this situation, they are. You may recall that within the past couple of years, then it's really only our limit of clearing type business that we've changed the protocol a little bit in that. Well, this is all in field, so there are no woody stemmed.
Right.
There's no woody stem vegetation except for some of the multiflora rows. It's gotten a little thicker over the
I was
past
going to
2
say, if he
years.
doesn't hurry up and mow
That's
it, it's
called
gonna be-
poison ivy, most of it.
No, you got some multiflora rows in there too. Trust me.
Oh, I do.
So anyway, you know, in terms of the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, there really isn't any significant difference in this
Change,
project. We would have the same conditions, and the only thing is getting these new plans, getting the new plans produced and getting them entered into our record.
So there's nothing new.
Nothing,
Nothing new.
nothing derogatory to add to this. You okay with that, Sam?
Yeah.
Everybody else? All right, do I hear a motion to
Issue an amended order of conditions.
issue an amended order of
As
conditions
discussed.
and we'll
And I'll
work
get
with
you
Brett.
those.
Brett, well, at that point, we'll be working with you on that, and I'm sure we'll get such a motion.
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I- Thank you.
Yes.
And I have an appointment with the engineer for tomorrow morning, so we're hopefully going to get that going.
Today's Wednesday? Yeah, okay, good.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
But I honestly, I had a set of prints that all multicolored that showed the
Brent can understand. He's
difference and all that, and it's like, what the hell was
sitting
that?
right there on the desk where you left it.
Exactly. Have a good night.
Yes, thank you.
Are you talking about here? We met Jeff. Years ago, when I was in Georgia. I didn't do anything with it, so.
To be honest with you, I didn't do a site visit because I
tried
drive
to-
past it every day and it's just field and it's just
Touching base.
bigger poison ivy and bigger multiflora rows, and I couldn't see anything to be gained by my shredding my clothes to walk across.
There's no access to that right now anyways, is there? You
Well,
gotta-
you jump up over the stone wall and you walk into it. So,
But, let me just ask, is that easy? Open a wall and disturb it?
supposedly he's got. My understanding is he's got approval. I didn't check and verify that. But
That's difficult. Are you on?
no, no.
All right.
I would think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
So the next agenda item,
Mhm.
I don't know if the chair wants to read this or not, or I can read it.
Go ahead.
9:15 p.m. continued request to amend the order of conditions DEP 63-625 at land off of Daniels Road, map 9 parcel/lot 23, the Tompkins Desjardins Trust, Bruce Tompkins trustee. Request to amend proposed construction of duplex buildings with associated roadway, driveway, utilities, stormwater facilities, grading, possibly within 100-foot buffer zone, the border and vegetative wetlands. As the commission last discussed this, I had been directed to to request a quote from Horsley and Witten Group to provide,
Yes.
a peer review of the revised stormwater facility, since the project had changed from 10 duplex buildings to 12 single-family homes.
Right.
And therefore, there was a question, and the consensus of the commission was to seek a quote and a peer review of the changed stormwater management facilities to make sure that they were still compliant with the stormwater regulations for the Commonwealth and for the Wetlands Protection Act. And so I did get a quote from Horsley and Witten, which I believe I distributed to folks, and I sent to Mr. DeCoulis. The quote was for a total not to exceed price of $1,500. $500 of that is for hearing attendance, which, depending on the result of the review, would more than likely probably not be acted upon or requested. That would probably only be in the contingency if it came out that there was some real engineering disagreement about the functioning of the stormwater system. So $1,000 was, again, the not to exceed price for reviewing the stormwater design. Probably the review would be less than that, but again, it would be $1,000. The applicant was contacted, and I can't remember whether I got the quote to the applicant and then heard back from them that they had mistakenly not completed the full stormwater report that they had submitted to the office, and that they needed to do some further either soil testing or something for where they were siting the basins. Again, I really don't know. And
So
since I provided the peer review, I've heard absolutely nothing from them. I was given no timeline for them to actually complete whatever work they had now identified that they had mistakenly not completed. I've heard no feedback from them in regards to whether they're accepting or not accepting of the peer review and going to provide the funds. And in fact, I heard absolutely no communication from them at all about whether they were going to request a continuance and that they wouldn't be here tonight to report upon the status of their project and how they were proceeding.
Can we mark this for the next meeting? And
Uh,
at that point, we'll just take it.
We certainly can. I just wanted to let you know that
Very
I
interesting.
I provided this quote for them on August 30th, and I was told by Horsley Witten that if they got the okay from us with the funds, that they anticipated, I think they told me initially that it would only be 2 weeks for them to do the review. So the delay in the continuance, I guess what I'm
Now
trying
I
to
know why you
succinctly
wanted to
say,
read it, yeah.
the delay in the continuance has absolutely nothing to do with the performance of the Conservation Office.
Can they, would somebody make a motion that we would address this?
To continue, just,
Continue it to the.
Move we continue this to the October 2nd meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Somebody's not in a rush.
We do the best we can to try and move these things along.
Better than any other town I've seen. So.
Well, and actually, I can't, everybody else is really busy. I was really surprised when Horsley Witten said, oh, here's the price right off, and we can do it, just give us the go-ahead, and I'm kind of like, okay, good, we're golden, maybe we'll have this for the meeting tonight.
Now, in this instance, would they actually do field work, or would they go based on?
No, they
field work?
basically are going to
Yeah,
look
okay.
at all the written
So
materials.
that's probably why. I mean, that's a good.
Because
thought.
they already had done the field work, but they would make sure that the applicant's representative had done what they needed to do in regards for the new design, and make sure that its capacity and its functionality was still met all the rules and regulations.
Would you like us to turn that up?
No.
We're getting close to the end. I can almost feel it.
We're like pretty much on schedule.
Good job.
All right, well, that takes care of the regular meeting. Now we have some certificate of compliance requests.
Yes. I am So in regards to the certificate of compliance request, the new one for DEP 63-648 for 524 Newburyport Turnpike, map 19, parcel/lot 9, Alexander Stolch. That's also the Agawam fence site.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
I'm going to request that the commission continue this item.
Okay.
This, just to let you know what the status report is when they first delivered the request for a certificate of compliance, which I think was brought into the office right around the normal submittal date, so that means it was at least 2.5 weeks ago. I immediately remembered from the spring monitoring report for the replanted area and the no cut, no disturbance posts that some of the stockpiled fencing and landscaping materials had intruded a little bit into the no cut, no disturbance zone. So I wrote back to them like almost the same day that they sent email PDFs of this in. I said, there needs to be a follow-up on this before I perform a verifying site visit. I said the spring monitoring report said there were instances of intrusion, so I need to know if those instances of intrusion, if that has been rectified and what the strategy was in rectifying that. And then number two, since we're now into the fall, I said I'd like a final monitoring report on the replanted area, plus they were doing invasive species suppression.
Now, when was that all to end? Was that to end this fall?
I haven't had a chance to look, but anyway, in one sense it's immaterial. When you have the May-June monitoring report and we're now looking at August-September, I would ask for a professional assessment as to whether everything has, it's gone through the hardest part of summer technically. So I would ask for an assessment. I just wanted a statement, that everything was fine, that we had, 90% survival rate or 90% coverage, Same thing we look for when we ask someone to plant a lawn. We want to make sure that we've got like 80% coverage of the grass, at least. And we use that same kind of standard with a replanted area. We say we want to know that about 85% of it is covered with native plant species that are alive. So I got the statement back from them, but that statement just came back yesterday, and they said, oh, we'd like to do a site visit. And I said, well, I'm sorry. I did all my site visits last week, and I have a hard enough time getting the materials for you because of the volume of work right now, so I really couldn't go do another site visit, and you would have gotten even fewer written
no problem.
input from stuff. So I kind of put that off a little bit.
That's what you should have.
They're not facing a sale or anything else like that, to my knowledge. So there should, and I can probably get this all wrapped up.
Give them a
next
chance
week.
to walk around and kick a few
Well, I can
stones.
arrange a site visit next week at the same time we're getting submittals before I'm doing any other site visits for new applications. And, we can.
We don't need to vote on that. That'll just be continued.
No, I just would like a motion to continue it, based on us having to do the verifying site work and following up.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
In favor? Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Now, the next one, is that one of the Herrick's
Yes.
properties they sold? Yeah.
So the next one is continued request for a certificate of completion. This is a stormwater management permit, SMP 27-2017, for Lot 5, Dodge Road, Map 5, Parcel 104, Lot 5, Douglas Stone. We also, now the street address is number 30 on that.
Okay.
So I've been out on the site. I've had communications with the property owner, and he's engaged the services of Comac Brothers Landscaping out of Peabody. I actually met Mr. Bruce Comac out there. And we went over the items that need to be addressed. The posts had not been erected. remember, this is a stormwater permit, but it's got the edge of the vernal pool habitat area coming in from an adjacent lot, some of the vernal pools on this lot. There's also forested wetlands on the end of this lot. This lot actually has frontage on Mill Street, I think.
Mill Road.
Mill Road, excuse me, Mill Road. And so we were putting posts up to just alert the property owner that there was regulated resource areas in there in case they started to clear something, because they did not obtain a permit under the Wetlands Protection Act or our bylaw to clear buffer zone or do any of that. So the commission had made the decision that based on the other clearing that had happened out there, that it was precautionary to put some posts with signage out there. They also had gutters and downspouts on all the structures going into dry wells. They had not installed the overflows. So if it backed up, that it would have a place to discharge. The erosion control was still there, and there was a little berm of material, so that's all being graded out. They picked up the sign discs from me today, so I think I'm rather confident in recommending to the commission that if you wish to do so.
That's all vegetative too, right?
Yeah, it's
I
all
wouldn't mind that,
vegetated,
yeah.
it's just they need to reseed where they take the sock out.
Yeah. No, I
So I was going to suggest that contingent on my performing a verifying field visit, that if the commission wished to do so, you could vote contingent to issuing a complete certificate of completion, which will have some ongoing conditions that authorize me to release it once I've confirmed that all the work on the site has been done appropriately. If you wish to do so.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
No, that works out good. Yeah, you had told me about how that was vegetating, and I went up, actually, I forgot why I was up that neighborhood taking a look, and I was shocked. Grew good.
Yeah, and it's nice. I mean, they did a nice job out there too. It's a nice piece of property. So, okay, so yeah, she guys just voted to do that, so I'll get some signatures, so I'll be able to send it out when they get that stuff done.
Now, the other ones are coming right along?
Yeah, the other two,
Yeah.
TW Excavating is who the owner, who's a builder out of, I think, Middleton, I think. So they've started doing the work for the, I haven't been out there recently, so I don't know if the foundations are in. I know that TW was digging the foundation holes just last week. They started the
I
excavation.
thought one of them was, when I went by there, it was last week, I think to do it. Putting in.
Yeah, the one on the high side, they hadn't done the foundation hole, but he had an excavator there, and the one on the lower side, on the
They
right-hand side, they had done. the
They
whole
share a
thing.
driveway.
Yes, the common driveway goes in, they're on either side,
Right.
either side of that drive.
Those actually looking pretty nice too.
Yep, they are.
Notice of violation, Havel Street.
Notice the violation. Oh.
I don't recall
Miss
that.
Luana Mackinac, this is right across from Prospect Hill. This is the clearing that occurred at that historic house.
Oh,
That's
yes,
the,
I do recall that, yes.
Chaplain,
Yes,
is it the chaplain or minister's house?
Brent and I have.
It's not been on the meeting.
Sorry?
So you and I talked on this.
Yeah,
weeks ago,
well,
But I don't think we.
it was supposed, yeah, it was on the last agenda, but she had to travel for her work,
Right.
as well as also she suffered a leg injury and she was having problems getting around. She's originally from Italy.
Yeah, I remember this now. Okay.
Yeah, and she just didn't know anything at all about the Wetlands
You
Protection
delivered her
Act
some
and-
stuff.
Yeah, so I actually,
we also, let me bring up some of the items on this so that we can discuss this a little bit, because I think she's not here, and I'll, of course, communicate with her that if she wishes to come and interact with the commission, but I think we may be able to.
I'm gonna say,
We may
what
be
she
able
did
to
was not that
propose
bad.
something that's reasonable and logical for her, her particular situation, which is definitely not of her doing in any type of conscientious manner. So, let me see here. Yeah. So, yeah, you can't help but notice this house because it's so close to the roadway, having, you know, I don't know when it dates from, but it dates from the early settlement
One of the old
of Raleigh.
I've seen a picture of that
16.
from the top of the ski toe, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a tree behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so inadvertently, she had hired, there is a square foundation, I'll bring up,
I think it was garage or something.
carriage house is how it's described.
Well,
Yes.
it was never built.
No, it wasn't.
Right, but the foundation was there. Well, she hired a landscaping firm out of Gloucester, and she had no idea that there was wetlands in there, and it's so overgrown with grape and stuff that you just don't realize that there's actually an intermittent stream coming off the hillside on that side. So let me try and get some of this out of the way and get back to the pertinent stuff. See, so I looked up earlier plans. Yeah, this is just the attribution. Okay, so here we go. So when the septic system was put in somewhere around 2002 to 2003, and then so the house actually had gone through at least one other owner, and they had turned up the fact that the original order of conditions hadn't been closed out, so we actually closed it out for probably one buyer removed from Mrs. McEnroe here. So the commission had declared a 15-foot no cut, no disturbance area that kind of circles this sort of bulging.
What is that round thing in that?
Well, the round thing was there was a pile of debris there that I guess the commission had cleaned up when the septic system was installed, because there's no sign of any piles of debris. It's a site that's been occupied for so long that there is kind of all sorts of scattered debris on the ground, but it's nothing substantial. You see chinks of brick or maybe small pieces of china or something. She actually has said she's into kind of antiquities and old historic houses, so she's been talking about all the different spoons and pottery,
The whole thing.
china shards they found around the house and stuff. So anyway, so this old foundation is there. She had hired a landscaping firm to just come in and clear. It was so choked with undergrowth. She wanted to possibly think in the future about putting a carriage house or a storage building there. But so she just wanted the vegetation cleared. Well, they incidentally intruded and went right down through this area. If you drive by there now, I put stakes both where I believe the wetlands was delineated, as well as some stakes as where the no cut, no disturbance area was supposed to be. But the commission hadn't required any type of marking or any bounding, so there was absolutely nothing to see. So between her lack of knowledge of the property, she'd never seen this plan before. So she didn't know that this was a situation where there were wetland resource areas that had a restriction tied to them. So I actually found some of the original ribbons sitting on the ground there, and like I said, I actually was able to use that stone foundation. There's a stone rubble wall right in this area that sort of acts. It's a very low stone wall, about 2 feet wide. It's about 8 feet long. So it actually acts as sort of a little barrier to that area. So really, I think all that needs to be done is requesting that she put in some no cut, no disturbance posts with signs, and then just keeps the area that's already been previously cleared. If she wants to maintain that, fine. She admitted that they went beyond. I don't think she set up any limits for them, so they had just they just sort of cleared what they thought was going to be amenable to her usage. So she did send me. Okay, so I got a communication from her back on Friday, August 17th, so I didn't receive it until August 20th. She said, "Good morning, Mr. Bazelak. Pursuant to our first encounter and your first visit to my house on Thursday evening, 26th of July, I wish to thank you for sending literature on public record of regulated wetland resource areas at 121 Havel Street, of which I was completely unaware and uninformed. I was able to further clarify regarding the correct maintenance and upkeeping of my property at your office on Wednesday, the 15th of July. She came in and we actually sat down and talked to her. During which time we established a second visit to my property to determine the wetland borders. I wish to take this occasion to thank you for coming yesterday, July 16th, and for posting temporary flags along the area in question so that I may continue the proper and correct maintenance and removal of scattered dead debris and hanging dead vines outside this protected area in accordance with and respecting the Rowley Conservation Commission Wetlands Bylaw. Thank you for your courteous attention." So if, I know I've kind of maybe rambled a little bit. If,
No, it's fine with me, and I know exactly what, yeah.
Well, actually,
it's
and I
fine.
think I've got some pictures, so let me show you the pictures too, as if you visited the site here. Okay, so my back is at the street, Havel Street, and I'm looking up. And so there's a tree, we've got a lot of grape, there's a little bit of bittersweet. Underneath this is the stone wall I was talking about. This flag and this flag are where no cut, no disturbance posts for the 15-foot no cut area should have been installed. So we'll go on here. So again, that's just showing that I think the landscapers just came straight down heading towards the street, not realizing they were getting in a depression. So this is looking at the historic sign. Here's Haverhill Street. This is one of those two stakes, the one that was furthest to the right. This is the other stake, and underneath this overgrowth in there is where that stone wall is. Here's the stone wall. Here's that foundation for that carriage house. I scaled off of that and used the different corners to triangulate measurements, since that's the only way I have to do something. But that, I think, let me recreate things pretty accurately, since, like I said, I found a wetlands plastic ribbon right on the ground where my measurements indicated the delineation had been originally. So I used wire orange stakes flags. Those are where the wetlands, that's the edge of wetlands. And you could see vegetative transition, as well as that also was noticeably a little depression there. So this is just looking back out towards the street, showing one of the markers that should have been no cut, no disturbance post, and here's the edge of BVW, freshwater BVW, back in the shadows there a bit. That's kind of with my back at the wetlands, with one of the BVW flags right in the front here. We're looking out to where the 15-foot no cut, no disturbance post should have been, and there's the foundation wall, and the stone wall is in that area. You can see the house, and you can see the little like garden shed type thing.
When did they put that foundation? Was that back in like in the 70s? Do you recall? I remember that was
It was
all.
done by the people after the early.
Right, it was
early
all
solar.
overgrown, and then they opened the whole thing up, put the foundation in. And then they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So unlike some of our situations there was a lot of grape here, which is a native species. It wasn't all bittersweet, but there was a little bit of bittersweet in it too, so. So if the commission is amenable, we could propose to her to just install some no cut, no disturbance stakes and just stay out of that area and allow her to do normal maintenance associated with her house on the other area. It is buffer zone, but the property has a long history of occupation and actually
One of the oldest in the town,
maintained.
I think.
Yeah,
It's the oldest.
yeah,
Is it the oldest?
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
I would have thought they'd have got flat land though.
No, there was a dugout, it was built as a cellar,
Yeah, but for fields.
dugout. It was built 40, 50 years after people came here, so it's not like it was.
Okay, yes, to get back to it, do I hear such a motion? So, second? All in favor? Aye. Yeah, you can tell that was dug into the hill, I mean,
Yeah.
warm.
Right.
But, yeah. If you go in on the ground floor, the back end of the house is still that
I'm sorry, who moved?
dugout.
Judy moved, thank you.
Yeah,
And Dan seconded,
all
thank you.
stone wall.
Yeah. If that house weren't where it is,
So if she has any concerns or whatever, I'll just propose that she comes.
Yeah, it sounds like she-
At the next meeting. Yeah, I mean, she was really kind of blindsided by this type of thing. You know,
All right.
If any, I think I may have distributed the little piece I made up, kind of utilizing what the town of Topsfield and the town of Foxford had utilized. I made up a little thing called the Guide to
Yes.
Wetlands in Raleigh or whatever. No,
that's a
not
travel.
that, no. I'll send it around and see if you think that little fact sheet I made up has some validity. I'd like to
Welcome to.
put it on good letterhead and post it like on our website or whatever, because apparently that's what most of the other towns are doing. They're trying to put up something that has a little guidance to folks who just aren't familiar. We do have the MACC brochure about the Wetlands Protection Act that goes into a little more depth. This is just kind of the cursory thing of saying Town of Raleigh's got a bylaw, we do protect wetlands. If you're going to have a project that impacts it, come into the Conservation Office. It's, one of those kind of just not a lot of heavy reading, just trying to get the point across that if you've got a project.
You're gonna put it on a website, I make a motion, we include the website.
Well, let me distribute it first.
Yeah, let's take a look at it,
What are you
Brad.
trying to say?
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
Kind of blunt, but do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'm in favor of that tonight.